Hello everyone, hello from Ukraine. You're watching Channel 24. My name is Anastasia Zazulak, and today our guest is Andy Milburn, who is retired from Marine Corps in 2018 as a Deputy Commander of Special Operations Command Central, responsible for all US special operations in the Middle East. Today he is a founder of the Mozart Group, which helps train our soldiers of the armed forces of Ukraine. So nice to meet you.
It's great to meet you. Thanks for bringing me on your show. It's a great honor. The Mozart Group has figured quite prominently in European and U.S. media, but we've yet to make a name among Ukrainians, and that's really that's the public that matters the most to us. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Well, during your 31-year military career, you were in charge of complex operations involving thousands of servicemen from many countries. And today, you are the founder of the Mozart Group, as I previously said, and this group actively helps our armed forces of Ukraine. So, what is your overall assessment of the ability of armed forces of Ukraine to resist Russian war and master new methods of conducting combat operations?
Well, first of all, we wouldn't be here if we didn't have tremendous, not just belief in the Ukrainian cause, but a tremendous belief in the prospect of Ukrainian victory. And, that's not, we all know, all of us who spent time in Ukraine, like, you obviously more so than I, know that that's not propaganda. That, to a man and woman, Ukrainians are absolutely determined to win this. And in war, as Napoleon famously said, the morale is to the physical as 10 is to 1. And Ukrainians certainly will win. The objective, the goal of groups like mine are simply this: to enable that victory to hopefully be sooner and at less cost in Ukrainian blood than would otherwise be the case. Yes, we're a small organization, but we're growing. And I think that if you talk to the soldiers that we have trained, the Ukrainian soldiers, who subsequently, all of whom become our friends, they wear our patch. We're very proud to have them do so on the front line. I think all of them will tell you that the experience of going through the courses that we teach, although they're very short, is quite simply life-changing. For a lot of these guys, I'm sure it's life-saving, and that means the world to us. The other touch point we have regularly with Ukrainian people is in Donbas, and there with the Mozart Group, we have two objectives. One is to evacuate anyone who wants to leave the towns that are constantly under Russian bombardment. Lysychansk was one, before that Severodonetsk, Soledar, Bakhmut now, all of these places. And probably about 20% of the population have remained behind. Some of them increasingly want to leave as conditions get worse. And for those who remain, for different reasons, they're facing a humanitarian crisis as winter approaches, and so that's our function. There are many non-government organizations that are providing humanitarian assistance, but there are very few others. I would venture maybe only one, and that is ours. That is an organization that is willing to go those final few miles, not just under Russian artillery fire, but into direct fire range also. And that's not bravado. We simply have to. Someone has to do that, right? So that's where we see our greatest effort, where we make the greatest change.
Thank you so much for your work. We really appreciate it. Well, we know that many American troops are now fighting with the armed forces of Ukraine for their own desire. So what do you think is the internal motivation of the Americans who came to the Ukrainian land after the start of this Russian full-scale war and are fighting and helping our armed forces?
Well, I think it's fair to say the motives vary, but I think it's also fair to say that I have, the guys I've met who've come over here to fight for Ukraine are motivated by two things. One is, yes, that this is a cause they believe in, and for the most part, they have served in combat previously, where they didn't really necessarily get a choice of what cause they fought for. Now they do get that choice, and they feel some pride in being able to exercise that choice. And yes, there is always a drive for excitement, for adventure that captivates a lot of people in our profession, and it would be dishonest to deny that. But I wouldn't say that is the primary motive. I would say the motives are for the most part pure, and for the most part they've fought courageously alongside their Ukrainian brothers and sisters.
Well, the US is doing a lot for Ukraine and to helping Ukraine to win this war. How do your acquaintance back in States and just ordinary Americans feel about the US assistance to Ukraine to protect independence and freedom?
Well, without exception, in my experience, all Americans I have spoken to are deeply sympathetic with the Ukrainian cause. There's no doubt in anyone's mind. I have not heard anyone in person offer a counter argument. You see it online, probably from fictional people, but no intelligent, let's just say no insane person here in the United States tries to defend Putin's moves vis-a-vis Ukraine. But here's my concern, honestly. I mean, there's no doubt about the motivation of the U.S. public and the U.S. government. I just see our role as the Mozart Group again as a conduit of information. From real requirements that we see or have been voiced to us. And we've got to be careful here. I understand that. I mean, because we don't necessarily see everything. But certainly the specific requirements by, I'll give you an example, drones, long-range strike drones, long-range surveillance drones, certain capabilities that the Ukrainians could make great use of, but are not necessarily expressed as formal requirements. And so having that conduit of information, I think, would really help the U.S. assist Ukraine in a more focused way. I mean, you can see now, absolutely, the U.S. government is throwing money at the problem and equipment at the problem. I'm just saying it needs to be perhaps a little more focused on specific requirements that the Ukrainian military have voiced.
Well, do the Americans understand that the threat to the West will not disappear and the aggressive Kremlin regime will not stop if Ukraine actually surrenders?
Oh, was that a question? Yeah, I think absolutely. No, I think any sane or at least any educated person who is a Putin watcher will tell you no. If this conflict ends with Russian boots still on Ukrainian soil, I think all of us know. At least, I'm taking a license here and saying all of us who are living or fighting in Ukraine, all of us know that will not be the end of the conflict in Ukraine. It'll continue, and it'll just be a means for which the Russians to get stronger and stronger and exert their malign influence within Ukraine itself. Number one. Number two, globally, we all understand the message that sends. International norms, the principles for which NATO stands. I understand Ukraine wasn't a member of NATO, isn't a member of NATO, but nevertheless, the principles for which alliances like NATO stand come to mean nothing in a situation like that. And those of us who have a kind of a global view of this understand that. Those who don't are either, sadly, Putin supporters or, I think, lack the education to understand that. All Ukrainians understand that.
Well, in July, you said that due to the lack of time and coordination, the Ukrainian military may not reveal the full protection of the Western weapons provided by its partners. So, in your opinion, did the armed forces of Ukraine manage to overcome this problem?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, given a handful of HIMARS rocket launchers, just a handful, the Ukrainians launched. I mean, I'm not saying it wasn't just HIMARS that contributed to this, but it contributed. You look at what happened in October, both in the north with the breakthrough in the vicinity of Kharkiv, 6,000 square miles taken in a short period of time, and then the advances made in the southern front. Those had a lot to do with weapon systems that gave the Ukrainian military an edge as far as lethality, as far as range, and HIMARS was a great example of that. So yes, things are, absolutely. The United States is providing weapon systems, weapons that are enabling the Ukrainians to gain an edge. What I would like to see are perhaps a jump to the really capable weapon systems, like the MQ-1, MQ-9, or let's just say longer range drones, and the longer range missiles such as ATACMS, which can be fired from the HIMARS platform, but which ranges 300 kilometers. Why not be all in and give these weapon systems? We're not going to anger Putin anymore, right? I mean, it's not as though he's keeping track exactly of what's being turned over. We can't manufacture red lines anymore for a man who is as just as irrational and self-obsessed as Putin.
Well, in your opinion, could the collective West and NATO provide even more weapon to Ukraine? In particular, Volodymyr Zelensky has repeatedly always talking about more air defense supplies.
Yeah, I think that systems that are on the way at least have been promised. It was the IRIS and the NASAMS to a German and a Norwegian/American system are very capable air defense systems. Certainly, what would really help the Ukrainians. What I would like to see is assistance with integrating all of their sensors with their radar systems. So, yes, by all means, IRIS, taking this S-300s, taking the NASAM systems, HIMARS, you name it, and integrating them into I'm sorry, not HIMARS, but integrating all of the other Stingers and integrating all of those into an air defense system. That is really where NATO could certainly assist.
Well, judging your previous interviews, the drill instructor from Mozart went to Ukraine specifically to train already experienced fighters to counter these soldiers from Wagner Group. Can you tell maybe the secret of preparing for a war against Russia, these soldiers, and are these Mozart Group specialists are now working in Ukraine with our soldiers?
Yeah, I'm sorry, what was the second part of the question? Did you say how many Mozart specialists?
Yes.
Yeah, I'll start there. So it varies between 30 and 50 at any given time, but we have any given time a pool of expertise back in the United Kingdom and the States. So, for instance, if the Ukrainian government were to reach out to us and say, we need EOD experts, we could bring EOD experts out within a couple of weeks. So, answer to your question, yeah, between 30 and 50 at any given time, and it really all depends on demand. Any given time, we have 2 training teams working with units near the front line. In answer to your first question, we have, and I'm not just saying this because I'm on Ukrainian television, we have consistently been impressed by the courage and the attentiveness of the Ukrainian soldiers and their morale. They are, they're happy warriors. And it is a real pleasure to work with them. It's not an easy task. Anyone who is a professional soldier knows that you cannot turn a civilian into a soldier in the space of, sometimes we only get 5 days. Sometimes we're lucky enough to get 2 or 3 weeks, but even that isn't enough. So we have to really condense and focus our training. We have on our side the fact that, as I said, the students have high morale, they want to learn, And so we take them through, in those 5 days, for instance, very quickly. They learn instinctively how to handle their weapons manipulation, we call it, all right, absolutely instinctively, so it's part of their body. And then we train them to shoot with that weapon, to zero that weapon, so the weapon is mechanically and physically aligned with that particular shooter. When they point it at someone, everything else being equal, they will hit their target. All right, guarantee you that the average Russian soldier does not go through training like that or have his weapon zeroed, regardless of how long he has. So that is, that is as I said, we do weapons manipulation, we shoot. So by the end of that, which is, a day and a half, they are really, they feel very comfortable with their weapon and confident that they can use it to kill the enemy at 300 meters. And that is one of the core competencies and confidences that you want a soldier to have. They spend a whole day on medical training, and that is absolutely essential. We've learned that. We take their medics aside and give them specialist training, at a high level. But every single soldier needs to know how to save himself, go through life-saving steps as much as he can, how to administer those life-saving steps to a body, literally save his life, stabilize him or her long enough for them to be evacuated to the next level.
Well, at the beginning
I'm sorry.
Yes.
Go on. I'm sorry, I was talking too much.
I'm sorry. Well, at the beginning of the full-scale invasion, these soldiers from Wagner Group, they were considered like very dangerous and very professional soldiers. But now things changed, and there are a lot of, they take to this Wagner Group the people who are very old or ill even. So what is going on here, and what does it indicate about?
Yeah, so I am no expert on the Wagner Group. I can't say this just from reading and talking to people. Informed speculation is that their escapades or gone wrong in places like Mozambique and the Democratic Republic of Congo in Africa and now in Ukraine. The Wagner Group has taken fairly heavy casualties in Ukraine, and so this word is getting back. The Wagner Group's having trouble recruiting. Why else would they be seen in a YouTube video that appears to be authentic, recruiting from prisons? And there's again, credible stories that they've been recruiting people with who are HIV positive or have hepatitis C, simply because they can, and they can offer these people a career path that otherwise they wouldn't have anywhere else. So, if you look at all these different data points, it seems likely that the Wagner Group is struggling right now for recruits, and they've never really had a high quality of recruits. I mean, they have this fearsome name, reputation through sheer cruelty, but their soldiers themselves have never had a good reputation for being soldiers.
Well, in your opinion, will Russian troops be able to have any success at the eastern part of our Ukraine in the future, or will the invaders maybe have to go into defense because the armed forces of Ukraine are coming? And if so, how effective could be this Wagner line that is they are doing at the Donbas? What do you think about this?
Well, a lot of great questions. So, here's my biggest concern is that the Russians will continue to push very slowly with the goal of taking as much as the Donbas they can before winter really sets in and before the G22 summit, all right? Because remember, the political part of this is all intertwined. And I'm pretty sure Putin is going to pitch at G20 summit that, hey, look, guys, I want to, I'm ready for a ceasefire. But by then, in order to sell it to his own public, he needs to hold on to that southern strip in the south, and he needs to hold on to Donbas. I hope that there is a plan to drive into the Donbas from the north, the Ukrainian military has made great headway there, and to unhinge the Russian army in the Donbas. Donbas is important to both sides, as you well know, as is Crimea now, and that's where the tough task is going to lie ahead. I have clearing the Russians out of Donbas may be easier than clearing them out of Crimea and that southern strip, beginning with Kherson and then Mariupol. There's some tough fighting there. The Ukrainians absolutely ultimately can do it and will win. I would just hope to see the West provide some more capable platforms and some advice on how to do this.
Well, what do you think about the winter? Because there are different experts say different opinions how the war will going on in winter. So what will be this winter for Ukrainian soldiers and for Russians? And can this maybe winter or weather stop this counteroffensive of armed forces of Ukraine?
Again, that's a great question. I don't think it will stop an offensive. I'll answer your second question first. It may slow it down, but winter also favors an attacker who's on the move for all kinds of reasons, to include psychological, to include temporal. I mean, the effects of the weather. The Ukrainian military is used to operating in the snow. The snow itself may not be such a barrier, although the ground is such a barrier as in spring, for instance, when you get heavy rains and snow melt and you get that really deep mud. It'll certainly slow down armored tanks and armored vehicles, but it'll do so on both sides too. So no, I don't see it slowing down a counteroffensive. What I do see slowing down plans for a counteroffensive are just having enough troops available to exploit a breakthrough in Russian lines. And I'm not saying this with any insights into Ukrainian plans. I'm just saying that right now is likely to be a concern for the Ukrainian military planning such an operation, just having what we call a reserve, an operational reserve ready on hand to exploit a breakthrough and make it more than, for instance, the breakthrough in Kharkiv became.
Well, Russia is a terrorist state. They attack our peaceful city, kills our people every day. Practically, we have these missile attacks, and they threaten us with a nuclear bomb and block nuclear plants. So, as a US Marine veteran and special operations specialist, maybe you can tell how the global community can even address the Russian presence at the Europeans' largest nuclear power plant, and is it possible maybe to liberate this by force, or it is not possible, or it is dangerous?
Wow, so great questions. Okay, I'm going to answer the last one first. So anything is possible, right? Many things are possible in militarily, because you just have to put the right force against the right mission. And there's so many variables involved that if you stack those variables, you increase probability for things that otherwise might seem impossible. Okay, sorry about that. Had to throw in a little bit of Clausewitz there. But my point is, retaking a nuclear power plant, not beyond the realm of the possible, highly, highly risky. And there would have to be a clear follow-on plan. And in order to, right, what exactly are we preventing, and how can we prevent it, and what follow-on actions do we need to take? So, yeah, certainly an operation that can be carried out. I'm just not. I couldn't tell you that plans are in place to do it. I can tell you what the questions that people are probably asking. What can be done about a rogue state such as Russia? I am afraid practically little more than what is already happening. but I would like to see more, as far as sanctions, as far as creating, making Russia essentially a pariah state. There's a couple of problems. And they're not insurmountable. I'm just saying there's a couple of problems that the Western Bloc, UK, US, and the NATO countries don't necessarily control global strategic communications anymore. And you just have to look, sadly, we're all aware of this, that across the world, there's probably, half of the world's countries have, if not aligned with Russia, have not condemned Russia for its actions. So where I'm heading on this is that's my biggest concern at the policy at the political level, not militarily. I have no doubt in my mind that the Ukrainian military would defeat the Russian military. I'm concerned about what is going to happen at policy level.
Well, and finally, I would like you to ask the question about the end of this war, because you, like the person with a great military experience, can make your own personal prediction. When will Ukraine be able to enter the state borders, including Crimea, and how will everything end for Russia? Because we know that everything for Ukraine will end with victory, and how it will be with Russia after Ukraine wins.
What I'm hoping for Russia is that Putin is overthrown. I know, we know what overthrown means for a guy like Putin in Russia. It means sadly, no, not sadly. That's probably the end of him. I'm hoping for that, what we call black swan event, right? The event that is not within the kind of linear realm of prediction, but an event nevertheless that is increasingly likely to happen, I hope. If that does not happen, it's going to be a long, hard slog. Again, I think the Ukrainian military is capable of it, but it's tremendous. It's going to be a tremendous effort to launch an assault into Crimea, across and supply yourself logistically at the same time. Ukrainian military is capable of it. I would like to see wholehearted focused US NATO support within the realms of current policy, I understand, but very focused support to enable the Ukrainian government, Ukrainian military to do what they need to do in this case.
Well, thank you so much for our conversation. It was really very interesting, and I hope that this conversation will be also very important, not only for me, but also for all our people who will read and watch our interview. So it was a great pleasure. Thank you so much. Slava Ukraini.
Slava Ukraini. Thank you very much to all your viewers. Please look us up online or on Facebook and follow what we're doing day to day in support of Ukraine.